In a sobering update, White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby disclosed to the press that the United States has nearly depleted the funds designated for Ukraine. Before we dive in details, please subscribe to the channel and stay always one step ahead to know all global important events happening around you. Give a thumbs up and share the video with your family and friends. Let's move on with that video. According to Newsweek, over $60 billion has been provided since the war's onset, encompassing security, economic, financial, and humanitarian assistance. Approximately 96% has been expended. The revelation came as President Joe Biden's administration faces challenges in securing additional aid. Last month's request to Congress for $106 billion, intended in part for Ukraine and Israel, met with conservative opposition. House Speaker Mike Johnson prioritized U.S. border security measures over the immediate release of funds for Ukraine, despite the House's approval of aid for Israel. Kirby emphasized continued U.S. support for Ukraine against Russian aggression and acknowledged the slow progress of Ukraine's counteroffensive. He stressed the urgency of further assistance before winter conditions impede military operations. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre echoed these concerns, noting the recent $425 million security package to Kiev significantly drained available resources. In response, the US is issuing smaller aid packages to prolong support. Public opinion on aid to Ukraine shows signs of waning. A Gallup poll indicated a majority of Americans favor a time limit on aid, contrasting with those advocating for sustained support as long as Ukraine requires it. Also, how exactly has the US been aiding Ukraine in this war? Let's delve deeper. US support for Ukraine is not a recent development. It has been a consistent theme over the years. From the times of former President George W. Bush to the present, the United States has stood by Ukraine in its struggle for freedom. The support has taken various forms, from public conversations emphasizing its importance to actual military and economic assistance. In fact, a noteworthy event was when Bush held a public conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The event, aptly titled The Struggle for Freedom, underscored the significance of US support for Ukraine, especially in its war effort against Russia. This was not just a symbolic gesture, but a testament to the enduring solidarity between the two nations. Fast forward to more recent times under President Joe Biden's administration, the call for increased military support to Ukraine has been louder than ever. High-ranking Republicans have urged the president to bolster aid to Ukraine, emphasizing that any delay could prolong the conflict and inadvertently benefit Russia. The US, along with its allies, has sent nearly $50 billion in aid and equipment to Ukraine's military over the past year. There's even talk of sending F-16 fighter jets, reflecting the seriousness of the situation. But it's not just about military aid. The US has also taken a strong stance against those supporting Russia. A prime example is the US Treasury Department's sanctioning of Alina Maritovna-Kabeva, reputed to be Russian President Vladimir Putin's girlfriend, as well as other Russian elites. This move was part of a broader strategy to hold those accountable who are complicit in the war. US support for Ukraine, therefore, is multifaceted, encompassing not just military aid, but also economic assistance and diplomatic measures aimed at isolating those aiding Russia. And this support continues to be a significant factor in the ongoing conflict. In recent years, the US's support for Ukraine has become more apparent and impactful. The United States has been actively engaging in a multitude of ways to stand by Ukraine in its conflict with Russia. One of the most significant steps taken by the US has been the provision of military aid. This includes the dispatch of nearly $50 billion worth of equipment and aid, intending to strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities against Russia's invasion. This military support has even extended to discussions about supplying F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. Ensuring Ukraine's military strength is a vital part of the US's strategy in this conflict. Alongside this, the US has also been involved in diplomatic efforts. For instance, former US President George W. Bush is set to hold a public conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, emphasizing the importance of US support for Ukraine's war effort. This event, organized by the George W. Bush Institute, Freedom House, and the National Endowment for Democracy, aims to spotlight the global challenge of the struggle for freedom. In addition to military aid and diplomatic discussions, the US has also imposed sanctions against Russia. The Treasury Department has targeted Russian elites and Kremlin's enablers, including reputed girlfriend of Russian President Vladimir Putin, Alina Maratovna Kabaeva, as part of a series of measures in response to the ongoing war in Ukraine. This move is aimed at holding Russian elites accountable for their involvement in the war. However, it's not just about supporting Ukraine, but also about taking a more serious position towards other global powers. Concerns have been raised about China's support for Russia's military, and there is a growing need to restrict the flow of weapons technology to China. These actions have not only cemented the US's role in the conflict, but also reshaped the dynamics of the war. The United States' commitment to Ukraine's defense and its efforts to curb Russia's advances are shaping the course of this conflict in significant ways. What are the current US policies and strategies in place to support Ukraine? The United States has been a stalwart ally to Ukraine, implementing a multifaceted approach to support its struggle for freedom and sovereignty. At the heart of these policies and strategies are military aid, economic assistance, and diplomatic efforts. In terms of military aid, the call for increased support has been loud and clear. This includes the potential provision of F-16 fighter jets, which some believe could be a game changer in Ukraine's defense against Russia's invasion. Training for Ukrainian pilots on these high-powered aircraft is a topic of discussion, reflecting the US's commitment to bolster Ukraine's military capabilities. Economic assistance also plays a pivotal role. In light of Ukraine's expressed need for continued aid, the US, along with its allies, has already sent nearly $50 billion in aid and equipment to Ukraine's military over the past year. This financial support aids in the country's war efforts and bolsters its economy amidst the ongoing conflict. However, the support is not just about material aid. The United States is also engaging in diplomatic efforts to highlight Ukraine's struggle on a global stage. Former US President George W. Bush is set to hold a public conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, emphasizing the importance of US support for Ukraine's war effort against Russia. This diplomatic initiative underscores the United States' commitment to stand by Ukraine in its fight for freedom. Moreover, the US is implementing sanctions against Russian elites as a part of a series of measures targeting those supporting the ongoing war in Ukraine. This includes reputed close associates of Russian President Vladimir Putin, thereby sending a strong message to the Kremlin. Furthermore, discussions about restricting the flow of weapons technology to China are ongoing, reflecting the US's strategic positioning in the broader geopolitical landscape. This underlines the United States' determination to prevent any potential alliances that could tip the balance against Ukraine's favor. These strategies illustrate the US's commitment to Ukraine's struggle. What impact has the US's support had on Ukraine, and what could the future hold? Let's delve into the effects of this backing on the ground in Ukraine. The military and economic assistance from the US has been instrumental in bolstering Ukraine's defense against Russia. It's not just about the firepower, the tanks, or the fighter jets. It's also about the symbolism of support, the message it sends to the world, that Ukraine is not alone in this struggle for freedom. The training of Ukrainian pilots on F-16s, for instance, is not just about enhancing their combat skills. It's also about building a sense of camaraderie, a shared purpose, and a collective resistance against a common threat. It's about standing shoulder to shoulder with a nation that is fighting for its sovereignty and its future. This support also has economic implications. The financial aid provided by the US has helped to stabilize Ukraine's economy during these turbulent times. It has facilitated essential services, boosted morale, and given the Ukrainian people the strength to endure. But what about the future? Well, the potential future implications of this support could be manifold. Continued military aid and economic assistance could mean the difference between victory and defeat for Ukraine. It could determine whether Ukraine can stand tall as an independent nation, or whether it falls under the shadow of Russian rule. The US's support could also influence the global balance of power. As tensions rise and alliances shift, the US's stance towards Ukraine could send ripples through the international community. It could set precedents, mold perceptions, and shape the geopolitical landscape of the future. However, it's important to remember that the future is uncertain. The dynamics of the conflict could change. The US's policies and strategies could evolve. The global community could recalibrate its response, but through it all, one thing remains constant: the enduring bond between the US and Ukraine, rooted in a shared commitment to freedom and democracy. The future of Ukraine is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The US's support will continue to play a crucial role in shaping it.